The camera was still rolling when it happened. Viewers thought it was a stunt, a staged scare, a clever act to boost engagement. But the scream that followed, it was not performance. It was pain. Real, raw, and final. Blood streaked across the stone patio. The phone, mid-livestream, clattered to the floor, tilted sideways, still capturing flashes of fur, claws, and chaos beneath the dense shade of the mango tree. A leopard, no longer a cub, now a predator. And a woman, crumpled, trembling, who once loved it like her own child. Welcome to Wild Shock Files. If you think wild animals can be tamed by love, this story will change your mind forever. Hit subscribe, like, and stay until the end. Priya Sethi had always chased danger, not recklessly but with calculated defiance. At 33, she was already one of India's most followed wildlife influencers, her photos featured in magazines and conservation journals around the world. With her long black braid, sun-browned skin, and fierce, unflinching eyes, she embodied the spirit of the jungle. But behind that fearless lens, there was something else, something far more tender. Priya was born in Delhi, the only child of two stern academics. Her childhood was not cruel, but it was sterile. The love she sought was not in books or classrooms, but in forests, in the eyes of stray dogs, in birds nesting under street lamps. Her mother once called it a phase, but it never ended. At 17, she left home, first for field studies in Uttarakhand, then documentaries in Sri Lanka. Eventually, she found herself in the scrublands of Rajasthan, dry, raw, sun-split terrain where every shadow could be a story. She had a gift, not just for photography, but for connection. She'd sit for hours, unmoving, whispering to a wild fox until it crept close enough to sniff her shoe. She'd mimic bird calls, share her food with jackals, and once even slept near a watering hole to photograph nocturnal life. Followers adored her. Brands sponsored her. Forest officials tolerated her. But Priya didn't care for fame. What she cared about was belonging. And when she found the cub, that need took on a new shape. It was late August. The rains had just softened the earth. Priya was traveling alone, scouting new material for her Wild Women series, a personal project focused on female-led animal groups. She just set up her camp under an aging mango tree near Udaipur when she heard it. A faint, broken cry. High-pitched, desperate, dying. She followed the sound across a shallow creek and found it under a tangle of brambles. A leopard cub, no more than 2 weeks old, barely breathing. Flies circled its damp fur. No mother nearby, no siblings, just this fragile, gasping scrap of wild instinct. She didn't hesitate, wrapped it in her shawl, whispered to it, gave it a name before they even reached the jeep. Shabaaz. It means noble falcon in Persian, but she always said it suited a prince of the forest. At first, she told herself it was temporary, just until he could be taken to a rescue center. But when officials dismissed her claim, when they said no such cub was reported missing, she convinced herself no one else could care for him like she could. And in a way, she was right. For weeks, her cottage became a sanctuary, a place of feeding bottles, warm towels, and sleepless nights. She documented every step, not for attention, but to educate. Her videos weren't flashy. They were soft, poetic, a lullaby of trust building between species. Shabaaz grew fast. His spotted coat darkened, his muscles stretched, but his eyes, golden, wide, unblinking, never stopped searching for Priya. He followed her like a dog, slept curled at her feet, licked her fingers like a cub would its mother. Her followers were enchanted. "This is love," they wrote. "This is the future of conservation." But not everyone agreed. Neighbors muttered about large shadows near their goats. Forest guards left notes at her gate. Even her mentor, an old professor from her fieldwork days, messaged her privately. "He is not a pet, Priya. He is wild. He will remember that." She brushed them off, called them paranoid, said she knew Shabaaz better than anyone, and maybe she did. But knowing someone does not mean controlling them. As Shabaaz entered his 8th month, small signs began to emerge. The first incident was with a stray dog, a skinny little thing that Priya often fed outside her fence. One evening, as she poured rice into a bowl, the dog approached too fast, too close. In an instant, Shabaaz lunged, teeth bared, a flash of fury, and snapped the dog's neck. Priya was stunned. He'd never shown aggression before. She screamed, hit him, But Shabaaz simply backed away, staring at her, unblinking. She buried the dog herself, didn't post about it, told herself it was instinct. A mistake. He was still learning. Then came the second incident. A young boy, her neighbor's son, had climbed over the low brick wall to retrieve a cricket ball. Shabaaz had been lounging in the shade, half asleep. The boy screamed. Shabaaz pounced. No bites, no blood, but enough to leave bruises and terror. The family threatened to report her. Forest officers arrived again. She pleaded, cried, promised to improve the fencing. Shabaaz, sitting calm behind her, looked almost innocent. But something had changed in both of them. She grew more possessive, more secretive, only allowed close friends to visit, avoided public appearances unless necessary. Her videos became less frequent, more curated, and Shabaaz began pacing, circling, watching the tree line with eerie focus. The once playful cub now bore the weight of something ancient, something lethal. Still, she loved him, called him her son, her protector, her reason to wake up. Until the final morning. The live stream was meant to be short, a casual Morning with Shabaaz post to update her fans. She held the phone up, laughed as he pawed at her scarf. She joked about his appetite, fed him raw chicken, scratched his ears. Then, suddenly, a stray dog barked beyond the wall. Shabaaz's ears pricked, his body stiffened, his tail curled low. Priya moved to grab his collar, not forcefully but urgently. That was the moment, the snap of instinct, the death of trust, and the beginning of the tragedy no one would forget. He moved like a phantom, silent, fluid, fatal. In the moment her hand brushed his collar, everything Priya had built, every whisper of trust, every gentle moment, every sleepless night spent nursing him from the brink of death, crumbled under the sheer force of nature reclaiming itself. Shabaaz did not growl. He didn't warn her. He turned, locked eyes with the woman who had once fed him from a bottle, and sank his teeth into her arm. The phone dropped with a thud. The live stream continued, sideways now, showing only frantic movement. A smear of blood, a shadow darting past, a scream, guttural, gasping, not just of pain, but of disbelief. She tried to pull back, stumbling over a broken pot, her free hand pushing against his chest, but he was no longer the cub who nuzzled against her warmth. He was a predator, strong, silent, born to kill. She collapsed under the weight of him. His claws sank into her side, his teeth now at her shoulder. She cried out for help, not realizing the gate was locked, the walls too high for anyone to see in. He didn't maul her face. He didn't aim for the throat. It wasn't frenzy, it was instinct. The kind that awakens in all wild creatures when provoked, cornered, or challenged. And in that moment, Priya's attempt to restrain him became a challenge. The entire attack lasted less than 2 minutes. By the time her neighbor jumped the wall, drawn by the sound of her screams, Shabaaz was already at the far end of the yard, panting, pacing, ears flat, eyes wild. Priya lay still. Her breath came in short, broken gasps. Blood soaked through her cotton kurta, one arm twisted beneath her. A trail of red marked the ground where she'd been dragged. She was still alive, but barely. The neighbor screamed for help, called the authorities. More people climbed over the walls, some carried sticks, others filmed. One brave man sprayed water toward the leopard, forcing it to retreat into the shadows behind the mango tree. When the forest rangers arrived, they came with tranquilizers, guns, cages, nets. Shabaaz didn't resist. He didn't attack again. He simply stood there, muscles tense, chest heaving, watching as the only human he'd ever trusted was lifted onto a stretcher, unconscious, fading. The last time she saw him, her eyes fluttered open for a split second, just long enough to meet his, and then they closed for the last time. The news broke within hours. Influencer mauled by pet leopard during live stream. Illegal wildlife ownership ends in tragedy. Priya Sethi dies protecting the animal she loved. Every outlet had a version. Some painted her as a martyr, others as reckless. A few made her out to be a criminal, but everyone watched the video. Millions saw the moment it all went wrong. Forest officers confirmed the worst by sundown. Priya had died from blood loss and internal injuries at the district hospital. Despite efforts, her wounds had been too deep, too many. She was 33 years old. An autopsy was ordered, her home sealed, equipment confiscated, footage analyzed, and Shabaaz tranquilized, caged, and transported to the nearest wildlife holding center. The aftermath was chaos. Protests erupted online. Hashtags soared. Petitions surfaced both to save Shabaaz and to punish those who had failed to stop Priya earlier. Experts were brought in for media interviews: wildlife biologists, behavioral psychologists, legal analysts. One senior conservationist said quietly during a panel, "We all loved her work, but love, unchecked, becomes obsession. And in the wild, obsession turns deadly." Others blamed the system. Why hadn't the forest department acted sooner? Why were multiple warnings ignored? Why didn't social media platforms regulate the type of animal content going viral? But some questions cut deeper. Why did Priya keep pushing the limits? Why did she ignore the signs? And, perhaps the hardest question of all, could Shabaaz truly be blamed? People who knew Priya personally spoke with pain, not blame. Her college roommate remembered her rescuing a dying pigeon and spending an entire weekend feeding it mashed banana. Her former mentor recalled how Priya once refused a prestigious internship just to stay behind and photograph a family of foxes raising their pups. She didn't just love animals, he said. She believed they loved her back. And maybe that belief blinded her. Shabaaz had given plenty of warnings. 3 months before her death, Priya had uploaded a private story, one not shared on her main channel, showing fresh scratch marks on her forearm. She joked about rough play, but looked nervous. Her neighbor reported hearing growls late at night. Her gardener quit, claiming the animal once cornered him in the shed. Even local children had stopped playing near her wall. But none of it mattered to Priya, because when she looked into Shabaaz's eyes, she didn't see a predator. She saw a soul she'd saved. And maybe that was the tragedy, that she couldn't see what he truly was, not a villain, not a monster, but something older than trust, older than love, a wild thing. Authorities made their decision within a week. Shabaaz could not be released into the wild. He'd been raised among humans, lacked hunting skills, and was dangerously habituated to people. He could not be placed in a zoo. His aggressive behavior, now publicly known, posed liability. And so, on a quiet morning, without press, without witnesses, he was euthanized. The final report stated, "Lethal response required due to public safety risks and lack of rehabilitation options." No memorial, no statement. Just a silent end for the leopard beneath the mango tree. The walls of Priya's home were eventually painted over. Her cameras collected dust. Her social media accounts became digital tombstones. But the debate never really ended. Should wild animals be kept as pets, even with the best of intentions? Can love tame instinct, or are some lines never meant to be crossed? The jungle doesn't negotiate, it doesn't reason, and it doesn't mourn. It simply responds to threat, to fear, to instinct. And Shabaaz, the leopard raised under ceiling fans and mango trees, responded the only way a wild creature ever could, when faced with the unknown. When his blood surged and memory failed, he did not betray Priya. He reverted. And that, in the eyes of many experts, was the heart of the tragedy. Dr. Alok Basra, one of India's leading carnivore behaviorists, was among the first to review Priya's footage. He didn't speak with condemnation, only quiet certainty. He wasn't angry, he said. He wasn't vicious. The attack wasn't out of hatred. It was instinctual. What people must understand is that a leopard is not a big cat version of a dog. It's a solitary, reactive predator. One trigger, and everything turns. He went on to explain how leopards, unlike lions or cheetahs, lack strong social structures. Even in the wild, cubs stay with their mothers for no more than 18 to 24 months before they are cast out to survive alone. Their tolerance for closeness weakens with age. Priya had mistaken emotional dependence for permanent trust, and that mistake cost her everything. But Priya was far from the only one. Across the globe, similar stories echo through headlines. In Texas, a man was killed by his rescued pet mountain lion after raising it for nearly a decade. In Russia, a young woman lost her life to a captive lynx she had raised from infancy. In South Africa, a conservationist was mauled to death by the same lion he once bottle-fed as a cub. Each story shares the same foundation: love, trust, denial, tragedy. Despite widespread awareness campaigns, the exotic pet trade continues to grow. In India alone, thousands of wild animals, from reptiles to big cats, are held illegally in private residences. Social media only adds fuel to the fire. Cute videos of tiger cubs being bathed, leopards cuddling with their handlers, or monkeys dressed in baby clothes gain millions of views, without showing the years of behavioral deterioration or the unseen aggression that often follows. Priya's case became a turning point. New policies were proposed within weeks of her death. Amendments to the Wildlife Protection Act gained sudden traction. Influencers who featured exotic animals without government clearance were flagged, fined, even banned from platforms. The Department of Forest and Wildlife in Rajasthan launched a targeted crackdown on illegal animal ownership, raiding homes, seizing species, and setting up new sanctuaries. And in a surprising twist of fate, some of Priya's own footage, raw, unedited, heart-wrenching, was used in PSAs to warn future caretakers. Her voice, once used to romanticize wildness, now warned of its reality. But perhaps what made her story resonate so widely wasn't just the tragedy, it was the love. Because Priya didn't abuse Shabaaz, she didn't neglect him, she didn't keep him chained or caged, she loved him with everything she had. And it still wasn't enough. That's the line most people struggle to accept, that love cannot erase instinct. It can soften it, delay it, mask it, but it cannot remove it. And when that instinct awakens, it does not recognize affection. It only knows the laws written in bone, claw, and muscle. Priya had said in one of her earlier interviews, "I don't see animals as dangerous. I see them as misunderstood." She wasn't wrong. They are misunderstood. But not because they're secretly gentle, because they are exactly what nature intended them to be. Unforgiving, beautiful, wild. A few months after the incident, a mural appeared near Udaipur's forest border. Painted in soft ochre and green, it showed a woman in a yellow kurta, smiling beside a young leopard, both outlined by a halo of mango leaves. No text, no slogan, just silence. It was defaced within weeks. Some called it irresponsible, glorifying a dangerous mistake. Others defended it as art, a tribute, a reminder. But for those who passed by, it lingered. It made them pause, think, remember. Today, Priya's name still sparks debate. To some, she's a cautionary tale. To others, a woman ahead of her time who died doing what she believed in. But whether viewed as victim or visionary, one truth remains unshaken. She misunderstood the one thing she loved most. And in the end, the jungle reminded her. A few lines from her personal journal were found after her death. Pages soaked with water, smudged by time, but still legible. One entry read, "He dreams beside me now, twitching as if running. I wonder what he sees. I hope it's not me chasing him. I hope it's freedom." There's something deeply human in her story. The desire to connect, to nurture, to tame what cannot be tamed. But the jungle doesn't make room for longing. And sometimes love, even the purest kind, isn't enough to silence the wild. So the question lingers, long after the last scream, long after the camera stopped recording, long after the blood was scrubbed from the stone. Should animals like this ever be allowed as pets? Or is there a line, sacred, invisible, that should never, ever be crossed? Thank you for watching Wild Shock Files. Subscribe for more stories that reveal the untamed truth behind the animals we think we understand.